Question 1. During which project management process group is the initial project risk management plan developed? A. Planning process group. B. Executing process group. C. Initiating process group. D. Monitoring and controlling process group. Answer: A. Planning process group. The project risk management plan is primarily developed within the planning process group because it defines how risk management activities will be performed throughout the entire project. This plan sets the framework for identifying, analyzing, responding to, and monitoring risks, ensuring a systematic approach from the outset. For example, before you even start building a house, you plan how you'll manage potential issues like bad weather or material delays, which is exactly what this plan does for a project. Remember, comprehensive planning is crucial for effective risk management and overall project success. Question 2. A project team is conducting brainstorming sessions, interviewing stakeholders, and using SWOT analysis to identify potential uncertainties. Which risk management process are they currently performing? A. Perform qualitative risk analysis. B. Identify risks. C. Plan risk responses. D. Implement risk responses. Answer: B. Identify risks. The activities described, brainstorming, stakeholder interviews, and SWOT analysis, are all common tools and techniques used to discover, recognize, and document individual project risks as well as sources of overall project risk. The goal of the Identify Risks process is to systematically determine all possible risks that might affect the project's objectives, such as a construction project team listing all potential weather delays or equipment failures. This step is fundamental because you cannot manage a risk if you haven't first identified it. Always remember, a thorough identification process is the bedrock of robust risk management. Question 3. A project manager is evaluating the likelihood and impact of identified risks using a probability and impact matrix. What risk management process is being conducted? A. Plan risk management. B. Perform quantitative risk analysis. C. Perform qualitative risk analysis. D. Control risks. Answer: C. Perform qualitative risk analysis. When a project manager uses tools like a probability and impact matrix to assess the likelihood of a risk occurring and its potential effect on project objectives, they are performing qualitative risk analysis. This process prioritizes individual project risks for further analysis or action by assessing their probability of occurrence and impact, often using descriptive scales rather than numerical values. For instance, classifying a risk as high probability, low impact helps determine which risks need more immediate attention. Think of it as quickly sorting your risks into high priority and low priority piles before diving into detailed numbers. Question 4. During a project, a specific risk event has occurred, and the project team is now executing the predefined actions to mitigate its impact. Which risk management process is being performed? A. Plan risk responses. B. Implement risk responses. C. Control risks. D. Monitor risks. Answer: B. Implement risk responses. When a risk event actually happens and the team puts into action the previously agreed upon strategies to deal with it, they are engaged in the implement risk responses process. This is the stage where planned risk response actions, like activating a contingency plan or executing a workaround, are carried out. For example, if a key supplier goes out of business, implementing the response might involve immediately activating a contract with a backup supplier. Remember, planning is essential, but timely implementation is what truly prevents risks from derailing your project. Question 5. Which of the following is a primary output of the control risks process? A. Risk register updates. B. Risk management plan. C. Risk report. D. Project charter. Answer: A. Risk register updates. The control risks process involves tracking identified risks, monitoring residual risks, identifying new risks, executing risk response plans, and evaluating their effectiveness throughout the project lifecycle. A primary output of this continuous process is the update of the risk register, which serves as a living document detailing all identified risks, their analysis, responses, and current status. For instance, if a risk that was being monitored no longer poses a threat, its status in the risk register would be updated. Keeping the risk register current is crucial for maintaining an accurate and real-time view of the project's risk exposure. Question 6. A project manager is analyzing the potential cost implications and schedule delays that could result from specific identified risks. What risk management process is most appropriate for this type of analysis? A. Perform qualitative risk analysis. B. Perform quantitative risk analysis. C. Plan risk responses. D. Control risks. Answer: B. Perform quantitative risk analysis. When a project manager delves into numerical analysis to determine the precise monetary or schedule impact of specific risks, they are performing quantitative risk analysis. This process numerically analyzes the effect of identified risks on overall project objectives, such as calculating the expected monetary value of a risk or running Monte Carlo simulations to understand schedule variability. For example, using this analysis could show that a particular technical challenge has a 70% chance of adding $50,000 to the project cost. This type of analysis provides objective, data-driven insights that help make informed decisions about risk exposure. Question 7. A project manager is allocating budget and schedule reserves to account for the aggregated effect of identified and unidentified risks. What concept is being applied here? A. Contingency reserve. B. Management reserve. C. Risk response plan. D. Risk appetite. Answer: B. Management reserve. Management reserves are budget or schedule amounts held for unidentified risks or unknown unknowns, and they are typically controlled by senior management or the project sponsor, not the project manager. In contrast, contingency reserves are for identified risks, known unknowns. For example, if a project has a general budget buffer for unforeseen events that haven't been specifically identified, that's a management reserve. This reserve acts as a safety net for those truly unexpected issues that can impact the project's overall success. Question 8. What is the primary purpose of the risk management plan? A. To identify specific risks and their potential impacts. B. To document agreed-upon responses for identified risks. C. To outline how risk management activities will be performed on the project. D. To track the status of risks throughout the project lifecycle. Answer: C. To outline how risk management activities will be performed on the project. The risk management plan is a foundational document that defines the approach, tools, and processes that will be used for risk management throughout the entire project. It specifies how risks will be identified, analyzed, responded to, and monitored, setting the stage for all subsequent risk activities. For instance, it might detail the probability and impact scales that will be used, or who is responsible for updating the risk register. Essentially, it's the how-to guide for managing risk on your specific project, ensuring consistency and effectiveness. Question 9. Which risk response strategy involves taking action to reduce the probability or impact of a negative risk event to an acceptable threshold? A. Avoid. B. Mitigate. C. Accept. D. Transfer. Answer: B. Mitigate. Mitigation is a risk response strategy where the project team takes proactive steps to decrease the likelihood of a negative risk occurring, or to lessen its impact if it does occur, often reducing it to an acceptable level. For example, if a risk is that a new software system might have bugs, mitigation could involve extensive testing before deployment to reduce the chances of defects. This strategy is about actively lessening the threat's severity or frequency rather than eliminating it entirely. Question 10. A project team decides to purchase insurance to protect against potential financial losses from a specific project risk. Which risk response strategy is being used? A. Avoid. B. Accept. C. Transfer. D. Escalate. Answer: C. Transfer. Transferring a risk involves shifting the impact of a threat, along with the ownership of the response, to a third party. While the risk is not eliminated, the financial or operational burden of its occurrence is passed on. Buying insurance is a classic example, as the insurance company now bears the financial risk of, say, an equipment breakdown. This strategy is useful when another party is better equipped to manage the risk or when the cost of transfer is less than the potential impact of the risk. Question 11. What is the process of developing options and actions to enhance opportunities and to reduce threats to project objectives? A. Control risks. B. Perform qualitative risk analysis. C. Plan risk responses. D. Implement risk responses. Answer: C. Plan risk responses. The plan risk responses process is precisely where the project team develops strategies, specific actions, and plans to address individual project risks and overall project risk. This involves devising ways to enhance opportunities, positive risks, and mitigate or avoid threats, negative risks. For instance, if a risk is a potential delay in receiving critical materials, the team might plan to identify an alternative supplier or pre-order materials to proactively manage that threat. It's the strategic thinking phase where you decide what to do about each risk. Question 12. A project manager observes that a previously identified risk has become more likely to occur due to recent external market changes. What should be updated as a result of this observation? A. Project management plan. B. Risk management plan. C. Risk register. D. Stakeholder register. Answer: C. Risk register. The risk register is the primary document used to track and manage individual project risks, including their probability, impact, and current status. When the likelihood of a risk changes, this information must be updated in the risk register to ensure it remains an accurate and current reflection of the project's risk exposure. For example, if a trade agreement changes, making a supply chain risk more probable, the risk register entry for that supply chain risk would be updated accordingly. Keeping this register current is vital for effective ongoing risk control. Question 13. Which of the following is a tool or technique commonly used in the perform quantitative risk analysis process? A. Brainstorming. B. Risk breakdown structure, RBS. C. Monte Carlo simulation. D. SWOT analysis. Answer: C. Monte Carlo simulation. Monte Carlo simulation is a powerful quantitative analysis tool used to model the probability of different outcomes in a process that cannot easily be predicted due to random variables, making it ideal for quantitative risk analysis. It involves running simulations many times over, each time using different random values for the uncertain variables to see the range of possible project outcomes, such as project completion dates or total costs. For example, it can predict the probability of a project finishing by a certain date or within a specific budget range given various risk factors. Question 14. What is the term for a project manager's and stakeholders' general attitude towards risk, specifically the degree of uncertainty they are willing to undertake in anticipation of a reward? A. Risk tolerance. B. Risk threshold. C. Risk appetite. D. Risk utility. Answer: C. Risk appetite. Risk appetite refers to the overall amount of risk an organization or individual is willing to accept in pursuit of value. It's a broad strategic statement that sets the tone for how much risk is acceptable for a project, reflecting the organization's culture and goals. For example, a company with a high-risk appetite might be willing to invest in a disruptive new technology with uncertain returns, whereas one with a low appetite would prefer proven solutions. Understanding your organization's risk appetite guides all subsequent risk management decisions. Question 15. A project manager is reviewing lessons learned from previous similar projects to identify potential risks for the current project. This is an example of which risk identification technique? A. Document analysis. B. Root cause analysis. C. Checklist analysis. D. Assumption and constraint analysis. Answer: A. Document analysis. Document analysis involves a structured review of various project documents, including lessons learned from prior projects, contracts, plans, and technical documentation, to identify risks. By systematically examining existing information, the project team can uncover potential threats and opportunities that might not be immediately apparent. For instance, reviewing past project closure reports might reveal that inadequate stakeholder communication frequently led to scope creep, signaling a potential risk for the new project. This technique leverages historical data to anticipate future challenges. Question 16. What term describes a specific future event that, if it occurs, will have an effect on the achievement of project objectives? A. Issue. B. Assumption. C. Risk. D. Constraint. Answer: C. Risk. A risk is defined as an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on one or more project objectives, such as scope, schedule, cost, and quality. The key characteristic of a risk is its uncertainty. It might happen, or it might not. For example, a new government regulation being enacted during the project is a risk because it's uncertain but could significantly impact the project's compliance requirements. Differentiating risks from certainties or known problems is fundamental to effective risk management. Question 17. Which risk response strategy involves eliminating the threat entirely, often by changing the project plan or scope? A. Mitigate. B. Avoid. C. Transfer. D. Accept. Answer: B. Avoid. Risk avoidance is a strategy that eliminates the threat of a specific risk entirely by changing the project plan, scope, or objectives. This might involve choosing a different approach, reducing scope, or even canceling the project if the risk is too great. For instance, if a project involves using a technology known to be highly unstable, an avoidance strategy might be to switch to a more mature and reliable technology. The goal here is to prevent the risk from ever happening. Question 18. A project team decides not to take any action regarding a minor, low-impact risk, but will monitor it. Which risk response strategy is being employed? A. Active acceptance. B. Passive acceptance. C. Mitigate. D. Exploit. Answer: B. Passive acceptance. Passive acceptance is a risk response strategy where the project team acknowledges the risk but decides not to take any proactive action, simply dealing with it if and when it occurs. This approach is typically chosen for low-priority risks or when the cost of response outweighs the potential impact. It means you don't plan anything specific, like a backup generator for a very rare, short power outage. This contrasts with active acceptance, which involves developing a contingency plan even if no proactive action is taken. Question 19. What is the purpose of a risk breakdown structure, RBS? A. To list all identified risks in order of priority. B. To graphically represent the hierarchical categorization of risks. C. To assign owners to each identified risk. D. To define the probability and impact scales for risk analysis. Answer: B. To graphically represent the hierarchical categorization of risks. A risk breakdown structure, RBS, is a hierarchical representation of risks, organized by category and subcategory. It helps in systematically identifying and categorizing risks across various project aspects, ensuring a comprehensive view of potential uncertainties. For example, an RBS might categorize risks into technical, external, organizational, and project management, then break those down further. This structured approach helps ensure that all potential sources of risk are considered during identification and analysis. Question 20. When performing quantitative risk analysis, what technique is used to model the outcomes of a decision in the presence of risk and identify the best of several alternative decisions? A. Sensitivity analysis. B. Decision tree analysis. C. Expected monetary value, EMV. D. Tornado diagram. Answer: B. Decision tree analysis. Decision tree analysis is a graphical tool used in quantitative risk analysis to help choose the best of several alternative courses of action in situations involving uncertainty. It maps out decisions, associated risks, and potential outcomes, assigning probabilities and values to each path. For example, a decision tree can help determine whether to invest in a new product launch, considering various market outcomes and their probabilities. This technique visually represents the decision paths and their potential financial consequences. Question 21. What is the term for a pre-planned response to a risk that has a trigger condition? A. Workaround. B. Contingency plan. C. Fallback plan. D. Corrective action. Answer: B. Contingency plan. A contingency plan is a predefined action or set of actions that will be implemented if a specific risk event occurs, typically when a certain trigger condition is met. These plans are developed as part of the plan risk responses process. For example, if a key team member threatens to leave, a contingency plan might include immediately starting cross-training for their critical tasks. It's about having a ready-to-go solution for anticipated problems. Question 22. Which process involves systematically and periodically reviewing and assessing previously identified risks, identifying new risks, and closing old risks? A. Identify risks. B. Perform qualitative risk analysis. C. Control risks. D. Plan risk management. Answer: C. Control risks. The control risks process is an ongoing, iterative activity throughout the project lifecycle focused on tracking identified risks, monitoring residual risks, identifying new risks, executing risk response plans, and evaluating their effectiveness. This continuous oversight ensures that the project team remains aware of the current risk exposure and takes appropriate actions. For example, during regular project meetings, the team reviews the risk register for updates and discusses any new potential threats. It's about staying vigilant and adaptive to changes in the risk landscape. Question 23. A project manager discovers an unexpected technical issue that was not identified during earlier risk planning. The team must now quickly develop a solution. This is an example of what? A. Risk response plan. B. Contingency plan. C. Workaround. D. Fallback plan. Answer: C. Workaround. A workaround is an unplanned response to a negative risk event that has occurred and for which there was no prior plan or contingency in place. Unlike contingency plans, which are pre-planned, workarounds are reactive solutions developed on the fly when an unexpected problem arises. For instance, if a crucial software module fails unexpectedly and there was no backup, the team scrambling to write a temporary patch would be a workaround. It signifies that a risk wasn't fully anticipated or planned for. Question 24. What is the expected monetary value, EMV, of a risk, and how is it calculated? A. The probability of the risk multiplied by its impact. B. The sum of all potential impacts of a risk. C. The cost of the risk response divided by its probability. D. The total potential loss from a risk. Answer: A. The probability of the risk multiplied by its impact. Expected monetary value, EMV, is a quantitative risk analysis technique used to calculate the average outcome when the future includes scenarios that may or may not happen. It is calculated by multiplying the probability of a risk event occurring by its monetary impact, positive or negative. For example, if there's a 20% chance, 0.2, of a project delay costing $100,000, the EMV is $20,000, 0.2 $100,000. EMV helps in prioritizing risks and determining the overall financial exposure of a project. Question 25. Which of the following best describes positive risks? A. Risks that have a negative impact on project objectives. B. Risks that, if they occur, could have a beneficial effect on project objectives. C. Risks that are certain to occur and have a known positive outcome. D. Risks that are completely within the project team's control. Answer: B. Risks that, if they occur, could have a beneficial effect on project objectives. Positive risks, also known as opportunities, are uncertain events or conditions that, if they occur, will have a positive impact on one or more project objectives. Just as negative risks, threats, need to be managed to minimize their impact, opportunities need to be managed to maximize their potential benefits. For example, a new technology emerging that could significantly improve project efficiency would be an opportunity. It's important to actively identify and plan for opportunities just as you do for threats to fully leverage all potential outcomes for your project.